Hello, welcome back to the Jack Ward Football Podcast and another episode of Just Another Month. As always, I'm joined with my co-host, Tom Chappell. How are we, mate?
Very well, lovely to see you. Festive greetings, Happy New Year. Let's get into some football, shall we?
Christmas
You're
tree's
looking very
gone.
smart today, by
Thanks,
the way.
mate. So are you. You've got like a nice little jacket. You look a bit like Mousinho if he was going
Thank you very much.
to a cold country.
Yes, well, I am going to Sunderland later on today, so that's probably about the equivalent of a cold country you're going to get.
Video is sponsored by Wooden Ground. Take a look at some of these brilliant pieces of art handmade on the screen right now, and you can get a brilliant discount in January, 10% off using the code JWARD10 at checkout. I've got one just down here on the screen to my left. I've also got this brilliant map form as well that looks absolutely stunning, and you can get your club's map or stadium, majority of them available on the Wooden Ground website, and you can get 10% off using the code JWARD10 at checkout. Let's start with Hull City. We're going to work through every single manager in chronological order because there's been a lot of sackings, hasn't there? Let's start with Hull because Sellers was appointed in December. And I think on the whole, everybody was pretty happy with that appointment. I think everybody thought, yeah, that's a really, really nice one. He's done really good things at Reading. The circumstances are extremely difficult. He came into a Reading team that we know is difficult, with a lot of off-the-pitch circumstances hindering them. Not a lot of resources whatsoever. And he's had to coach that squad into a position where they are punching above their weight, and they're in a really good position in League One. He kept them in, and they stayed in League One last season, and he left them in a really healthy spot. On the pitch, that is, not so much off it. He's not really in that position to help too much. But for Hull and what they need, I think it was quite a forward-thinking appointment.
So he's kind of single-handedly made himself a high-stocks manager through navigating some circumstances at a place like Reading that you said, and all of a sudden he becomes an appealing championship option for a club that is down there. I still think personally that the whole board / fans / everyone associated with that football club will be kicking themselves at getting rid of Liam Mousinho in the fashion and the manner in which they did. I think that was a terrible decision. Showed that Tim Volter never touched the fans, never quite got going, never really got the run of results that you need when you're at the bottom end of the championship or any division fighting for your survival. So we have little to go off in terms of how well Sellers is doing at the moment, because it's obviously only been a month or so and there's some half decent results in there, but there's also quite a lot of defeats too. So wait and see on Sellers, but I think it's as good of appointment as Hull could expect at this, what is quite a tricky and precarious situation for them, and good for him in terms of a career step as well.
As for Millwall, again, in strange circumstances, I don't think we'd have predicted this last month, but that's the Championship. It changes all the time. Neil Harris has walked. He walked in December. They have found an appointment only recently. We actually watched them play. I've watched them play with the new manager. Didn't quite go the way they would have wanted to, but a good result for us. But we'll focus on Harris leaving first. It felt like he'd had enough, or he'd been frustrated off the pitch, higher up, maybe a hierarchy fallout. And Neil Harris, we know what he's like. In fact, I think we did this when we spoke about the manager and we ranked every manager. We sort of said he's quite a stubborn guy, and sometimes that can work to his, in his favour, because he's someone that has a very, very distinctive approach. When it doesn't work and when he falls out with people above and when they have a slightly different direction, or the fans start feeling something that he doesn't quite think's right, he then sort of goes, well, that's fine, I'm just going to go then. And that's almost what happened there.
So the Millwall managerial change perhaps is maybe the least shocking one that we're going to talk about, because we kind of knew it was coming, didn't we? We got the announcement Neil Harris then had, I believe it was a game or two, and then the Middlesbrough game he did, and then he left and did this sort of like rally war cry to say stick with these players, etc. From the outside looking in, it surprised me a little bit. And I remember there was a run not too long ago, and you'll remember it as well, where Millwall were basically winning 1-0 every week, and that run came against some really top teams as well. Leeds and Burnley, they both beat in that time. Things begin to come a little bit unstuck post that run when you break it down. Neil Harris this year just gone in 2024, right? He's sat by League 2 Gillingham, and they're 8th at the time. Has a decent 10 to 15 games at Cambridge, I think we'd say. Joins Millwall, keeps them up, starts this season well with the run we mentioned in there too with the 1-0s. The third most championship points since his appointment. Then he steps down. So I'd say, as I mentioned, it's a bit of a surprise looking in. You've kind of touched on it already. I don't think many Millwall fans watching, or many Millwall fans that sort of were watching the situation unfold, were taken aback by it. There was a bit of a, as you say, lack of alignment for an overall vision and strategy upstairs compared to Neil Harris's ideas, and particularly in the Championship. That's always a dangerous precedent to have and to have set upon a manager. I've said many times, actually hearing your studio, that it will always be a fit for me, Neil Harris at Millwall, Mr. Millwall, managing Millwall. He'll always be Mr. Millwall, just won't always be managing Millwall.
And that is a really good way. That's a good way of looking at it, because I think no matter what he is tagged as, whether that is Mr. Millwall, if he doesn't feel it, if he doesn't get that energy, some managers are deemed yes men, or deemed people that will just sort of ride the storm potentially. He's not that guy. If he doesn't feel that that's what's right for him and right for the football club that he clearly has a lot of respect for, that's time for him to move out of there. He doesn't want to be associated with that. And time will tell whether or not that's the right thing to do, because they've appointed Alex Neil since then, who I've seen play. And again, we spoke about maybe not going into too much detail in January, but I can use that as almost a mood board as to what we could potentially see in the long term. We saw him in League One when we were both there when he got Sunderland promoted, and that was a very, very tricky job. We saw a lot of managers come into that football club and fail, quite rightly. That's the only way I could describe it. I think that is the truth, and he did, took them to Wembley, got them promoted. He then moved to Stoke, and that didn't quite go down very well. That job didn't go down very well. I think at Millwall, if we're being honest, I know it's quite a cliche thing to say, but if you could put a manager next to Millwall, if it wasn't Neil Harris or maybe Gary Rowett, they'll come on to a second, you probably would put Alex Neil. That he feels that type of manager. He's somebody that has a very, very, I use the word again, distinctive style. He's someone that is definitely results based. He wants to be robust. They want to play good football and be quick in transition, but they're all about conceding less and about it being as structurally robust as they can. And we know what Millwall are about. They're about being aggressive, but also positively aggressive team that can then hurt teams, in quick turnovers with the flashy players they do have. I think Alex Neil does fit that. He is that type of guy. He's honest. He's brutal. I wouldn't say he's overly footballing sexy, if that's the best way of putting it.
Overly footballing sexy.
That's probably not the best piece of analysis I've ever given, but you know what I mean.
10,000 subscribers, everyone. That's what that gets.
I'm using that phrase, but you know what I mean. He's very, very Millwall. I think he is.
They've learnt from their mistakes, haven't they?
The Edwards appointment, when they tried to go modern, it's never worked.
They realised that Millwall is not the kind of place that suits the modern, up-and-coming, energetic, all singing, all dancing kind of manager. They want to go straight down the arrow, see it as you say it. Alex Neil, Neil Harris. I think it's a similar appointment, a slight tweak on what he'll try and do and what they'll try and achieve. As you say, we don't have enough evidence to support any kind of pattern emerging from an Alex Neil Millwall. We don't know what that looks like yet. Come back in the next jam and we probably will do.
I think he'd be flexible, but I think he'd also be very, very honest, and that's what the fans at Millwall desperately want, is transparency. Let's talk about an ex-Millwall manager in Gary Rowett. I was going to sort of do it because Buckingham has been sacked. If you want to sort of have a real feel,
has he?
He has been sacked. Yeah.
Wow.
And I did a video on that. Has that gone down as well as I thought it would have done? It did until the new manager came in, and we've been really good. But I think that video was all about me sort of expressing how I felt at that given moment. And if you want to hear my thoughts on that, I can really only push you to that video, because that was how I felt the day that he did lose his job. Do I think in hindsight it's the right thing to do? We're in a results-based business, and right now we're talking about 12. We're talking about 9 points from 9.
Someone's changed the tune.
I don't know, because I think the way they went about it was the thing that really, really frustrated me, and the way that they dealt with it was poor.
What you're saying is, had you known what was coming,
well, I think we all would
you have reacted differently?
You know what I mean? It's like being upset at the Christmas present initially and being gutted, and then waiting 5 minutes, and the present you've actually wanted is actually still in the house. You know what I mean? You're still going to open that present.
That's the 10,000 subscribers.
You know what I mean? It's just going to happen 5 minutes later. You've just got to wait. You could deal with the emotions now, but you then got to maybe see that still might be fine, in just a short amount of time. That's what Gary Rowett's produced. He's produced a team that was very low in confidence, and he's picked up 9 points against two teams I think we probably wanted to win and needed to win in Cardiff and Plymouth. Millwall away, nobody thought we'd win that game. A draw would have been a fantastic result. We've gone there and kept a clean sheet and done what Millwall wanted to do to us and beat us narrowly. So I think that's really, really important. Were we upset with Des Buckingham? I think the biggest reason why we were upset is because it has an emotional connection, right? It has, it's like if you're bored, you say you were bottom of the table or really close to relegation or being close to being adrift. They sacked Mousinho and brought in somebody who was a proven manager. You'd be gutted initially because of the emotional connection, but if he kept you in the league, I would be very, very surprised. There's any Pompey fans that go, actually, I'd have preferred League One with Mousinho. You don't know. You don't know, because actually the championship in the long term for from a business perspective too, as fans, we think about the heart a lot, and that is important. But Oxford United are a much healthier proposition in the Championship, obviously. And if they feel that Gary Rowett can provide that, then in hindsight, he's done fantastic things. He's developed players. He's made players that looked pretty poor under the Des Buckingham tenure in the Championship look really good. Blachetta Volt, for example, he's transformed that team.
This is not me being sort of, and this, I take my Pompey hat off completely here because we lost to both these teams. But would you also say, and we haven't played Millwall yet, would you say there's an element of, you've played Cardiff, you've played Plymouth, you've played Millwall, if you were going to offer Gary Rowett the best 3 games to come in and win on the trot, you probably couldn't get a better 3 than that?
Plymouth and Cardiff, you'd go, yes, you'd want those, because before that we had Leeds away and we lost 4-0. You would not want to come in for Leeds away, because I don't think you can have any manager come in. I think that's what the point that we also made was that what's even more impressive is these are the players that Des Buckingham had. He's not coming, you can bring in any manager in the world, but he's still got to inherit the current players. And the only thing he can do is give a new voice, provide a real shift in confidence, which is what those players needed, but also improve individuals that clearly were better than what they were showing. Will Vaulk's gone from looking like someone that wouldn't get into a League One side to a comfortable Championship performer, like he was showing at Sheffield Wednesday. Blachetta looked like a really, really one-dimensional winger before. He now looks like a really speedy, getting behind, attacking threat winger, 1v1 threat, who's got output as well. And when you haven't got a transfer window that he's now going to have, the least he can do is improve what he's got in front of him. And 3 wins from 3 against 2 teams you'd expect him to beat and 1 team you'd go, that's not a very nice place to go whatsoever. I think you absolutely take it.
Do you think all he's done is come in and reminded these players just how good they are and how their abilities actually speak for themselves?
A lot of it's psychological, yes. I think there are a few tactical switches. I think he's gone to, he's playing a much more of a compact team. I think we're far too open. The space was being exploited far too easily. I think we look a much better unit. We look far more organised. I think there's a few more players playing to their strengths as well. And sometimes that's the simple tweak, isn't it? I think you can almost get sort of managers, and Des Buckingham had a very, very distinctive style. He knows what he wants. I think Guy Rowett's come in and gone, I think I can make you better by making this tweak to somebody else. And suddenly the puzzle looks good. We've got Preston away today, and that's going to be another really tricky game. We've then got Plymouth away after the FA Cup. Again, you don't quite know what Plymouth are going to do away from home.
You got Plymouth again?
And again, we're playing them away. They are much better at home. We've then got a couple of home games. So we can get excited, but every game of the Championship is difficult.
Should we have a conversation next month about Gary Rowett?
Well, if we were ending it now, he's done a phenomenal job. He's had a real effect. You're going to talk about West Brom, because Carlos Corberán, it's felt like, it was going to be every single season that bloke was linked to a Premier League job or linked to a move away.
He was.
Finally.
It's happened.
It has happened. He's moved to Valencia in La Liga. He is Spanish himself, so I can see why he's done that. For West Brom, that's left him in a bit of a tricky spot, because he was a fantastic manager for us.
I've got a kind of on their terms managerial change again, haven't I? And I don't think many can, from the outside looking in, West Brom fans will be fuming, but I don't think many can blame Carlos Corberán for, as you kind of alluded to there, going back to his boyhood club. If the opportunity arises in Spain at Valencia, if that ever presented itself as an opportunity, whether he was at West Brom or not, I think it's one he wouldn't ever turn down. And the fact that all these links have come about, I think he's kind of always been looking at them and thinking, oh, well, I'm only going to do this if this is really right for me. And the fact that he's linked is because he's a high stocks manager and he's a really good manager, just over 100 games in charge. And of course, not the Christmas present that Baggies fans will have wanted. It was literally 15 minutes before Christmas Day started that the tweet comes out through all the club's official channels. Yeah, and I'm not sure I'm sure actually that a number of West Brom households would have had their Christmases completely ruined within like 10 minutes of the day starting. I don't actually think it should be, and I don't think we do underestimate how good of a job Carlos Corberán actually did during his time at West Brom. You think about the resources at his disposal during his time at the club, alongside some significant financial issues, of course. A win, a draw, and a loss post Carlos. I think we need to wait a bit longer to see and start to draw some longer-term conclusions about where this leaves the Baggies. Who do they get in terms of that ongoing hunt for a top-end spot in the Championship this season? Their 4th season out of the Premier League. Does Carlos Corberán's departure ruin the chances of that in terms of a return? I don't know. That's to be seen. They've got half a season to put it right, but right now, slumping towards a playoffs rather than an automatic promotion hunt for me. We're very sort of steadfast in the fact that we both believe there's a 4-horse race going on. West Brom are not one of those teams at the moment in automatic contention. in terms of promotion.
Yeah, they are in sixth.
And would Carlos have delivered that had he stayed the whole season? Would be my question.
Maybe, I think
Potentially.
I think,
no one will ever know.
No one will know. I think, to be honest with you, they are in the top 6 conversation. I think they would have been. I think it's very, very difficult to break into that top 4 hunt now. Let's say that it's 8 points. 8 points is a fair amount considering you've got the top
harder
teams.
to climb, yeah, and they're all winning as well.
So it's difficult. But I think the Carlos Corberán one was a bit of a kick in the teeth because you felt as if it was quite strange because he gets linked to every job, and the Valencia job came up, and it was like, no, don't need to worry about that. And then he just went. I think it was quite quick.
But it's because it was right for him.
It was right for him, and the speed of it was lightning. It was a case of okay, and no, he's definitely going to go there, and it was then difficult to adjust. I think as a football club that want to replace a really exciting head coach who played a really good brand of football and worked with some very limited resources at times. That next appointment's got to be right. They haven't appointed anyone yet. I know Chris Brunt's actually come in and done an interim job. He's done very well, actually. They haven't lost a game, bless you tell. They won a game and drew a game in that period too. I think it's a really, really good one and one of the best, or I'd say the best Stoke could have got in terms of looking at a championship-proven manager. Somebody has walked to football clubs that have been in very, very tricky situations before, and he's done well. Look at Coventry. I know we look at them now as a real force of the championship. Maybe not so much in terms of results at this current stage, but in the last couple of years, they definitely have been, and far better than what they were when he first came in. He said himself in a press conference, I saw him sort of say that he's walked to some very, very tricky jobs. And for a long time, he's sort of deemed as a firefighter. And he's definitely not that. He's somebody that over a period can inherit a project and thrive with it. He honestly can thrive with it. At Stoke, it's going to be really difficult because this club has been, I can't think of any other words of saying they've been stuck. They've been stuck in the Championship for a long time. They've tried different recruitment strategies. They find different ways of making a team better than what it is, and they've really, really found that challenging. But if there is somebody that can come in and improve them and also be very, very strict in the way that he wants that club to be run, I see Mark Robins as a manager far more than a head coach. He's brought in a whole new coaching team with him that he hasn't, I don't think, worked with before. He definitely didn't work with them at Coventry. He is more of a manager. He wants to see that football club. I'm not saying he's not on the grass coaching players, but I think as a manager, he's going to drag that team. I think and drag that football club. I think Stoke, in their current position, need somebody to come in and go, "This is what I've done before. Trust me," and then drag them to where they need to get to. Respectfully, Palach wasn't that because he's never been a manager before. They tried to go. Again, they tried to do the modern thing.
Tried to do a John Mousinho.
They tried to do a John Mousinho and go and find a goalkeeping coach from, I think it was Norwich, or a first-team coach from Norwich. And everybody sort of went, not sure. Genius if it works, though. And it didn't work.
On that night where we were humbled 6-1 by Stoke, and
genius that night.
And your old man texts you to say that Pompey are rubbish in sort of different terms. They were. Would you have thought that Narcis Palach would lose his job sooner than John Mousinho that night? Probably, if you'd put a bet on that at that point, or if you'd had a conversation with someone, they would have told you absolutely no chance that Narcis Palach is here. It was only his second or third game, I think, at the time. Then all of a sudden, fast forward to now, and I suppose it's amazing how football changes. You're going to ask me about Mousinho later on as well, so I'll tease that slightly. You're going to do a big question.
Oh yeah, or maybe Mark Robins run this conversation now. Let's just sneak it into that before we talk about Wayne Rooney.
Right, go on then.
If he was to lose his job,
if who was Mousinho, right? Which he won't, but yeah.
But if he does,
yeah.
Then everybody thought Des Buckingham was safe for Salzers.
Did they?
Yeah, I don't think. I think I've come on here before and said that if Oxford United got relegated, I still believe that Des Buckingham would have been our manager.
Right, okay, but I would say I don't know what the next level up from being safe as houses is. Safe as apartment buildings. Honestly, I can't tell you how safe that job is for Mousinho. Put it this way.
Will that eventually frustrate fans, though?
No. If he's sacked this season...
But there's been so many... I know that he's won games. There's so many games where you go, if he does that 3 times in a row, that is... But then you are like either really good or really bad.
I feel this strongly about it. If he's sacked this season, John Mousinho, the next jam after that, I will come and co-host with you naked in this studio.
Right, well, you've got that on camera.
Right. Honestly, I feel so... That's a Gary Lineker match of the day sort of thing, but I genuinely feel so strongly about it. We could go down, he won't get sacked, 100%, and so he shouldn't be. I've said this in the last couple of weeks. 5 out of the 7 managers in and around us, and this is getting onto Pompey chat, and we will in a moment. Have we got any more to do, or are we done now? Right, I'll make it brief. We'll come back to Plymouth. 5 of the 7 managers in and around us at the bottom end of the Championship have disposed with / walked / their managers have gone at some point this season. Yeah. I'm so confident, quietly confident, and this weekend might completely change my opinion because it is hot and cold, and you're right. I'm so confident that it will benefit us massively having stuck with John Mousinho, having a steadfast approach to his future at the football club, than if we were to have disposed of him. I think in the long run, it's going to prove to be such a better decision to have stuck with him to keep us up. Obviously, January's massively for us. That's less of John Mousinho and more on the ownership structure and recruitment to bring in, which I know he has oversight of. I think it is massively the right decision. As you say, the only name, and this was at a point where we were really, really poor, right? When we lost to Plymouth, we lost to Sheffield Wednesday. We had a couple, the Stoke and the Cardiff game. It was about that sort of time as well. The only time where I considered that, I thought, if Mark Robins was to ever become available, that would be the one name in kind of realistic terms, if we're having a bit of a realism about us, that would have been the one name that I would have potentially looked at and gone, okay, I could see what they would have done had they made that decision. As it goes, he's gone to Stoke. I think that'll be a great appointment. And I with you completely. I could see Stoke's fortunes turning around completely now, and they will probably be a comfortable mid-table Championship side, which Stoke don't want to be. We know that, but in the current circumstance, and that's the situation that they're in. We'll go to Plymouth, and then we'll come back to a little bit more Pompey's, a little bit more I want to say.
Yeah, Plymouth next. Wayne Rooney. It felt like the job that if we could have, I think he would have been the most likely to be sacked. I know I actually am not one that is.
Remember the Kaleem Rooney chat?
We did do that chat. Maybe that's a slight contradiction with what I was going to now go into. I think a lot of people didn't want him to do well. I got that vibe. I sort of got that feeling that everybody was sort of, other than Plymouth, everybody was sort of just like, yeah, it'd be quite funny, isn't it, to sort of see him do it again after the Birmingham disaster.
Will he ever manage again?
I don't know. I probably would have said not really after Birmingham, and then he got another Championship job. It was a very, very difficult job. I was going to say a horrible job. I think Plymouth are actually a very, very, on the whole, before the Rooney thing, have been known as quite a well-run football club. To get themselves into the Championship in the first place, they're not a huge, they're not,
and stay in it.
And stay in it. The catchment area of Plymouth is a very difficult, club to keep Championship status hold of. Really, if you look around, they've got Exeter in League One, but beyond that, they're in a very different part of the UK. So to be in the Championship and stay there, I think he's really, really good. But it's a very difficult job. It's an extremely difficult job, and we had this conversation a lot before the season and when it was going quite badly under Wayne Rooney. Is he, again, similar to all his managers, he can only work with what's in front of him. He's been very unlucky with injuries. There had a lot of players that were your best players, and your Morgan Whitakers, your Sissoko's was on fire. Both have been injured for a long period of time. But the issue they currently have is they're going to get caught adrift. And they had to make a decision. They look at it and go, do we risk our entire campaign and give Wayne Rooney a full season no matter what, when everybody's back fit, give him another transfer window? Or are we just going to be, come the end of the season, if they finish 20 points adrift at the bottom three, they're going to get absolute pelters, purely based on the fact that Wayne Rooney hasn't got a very good track record of keeping teams in the Championship. And he hasn't got a great pedigree
towards the end.
And you can't really argue that too much.
Who was that one win against?
You, wasn't it? And they are better at home. If we're looking at the positives, at home they were better. Away from home they were dismal. They were so bad. Haven't won a game away from home. Didn't win a game, of course, away from home under Wayne Rooney. Clearly was an issue. I think they just felt they were forced into it. The fans had sort of lost that. And they never have they ever had a connection? Perhaps
was
maybe.
Was it 3 weeks late?
It's sort of, hindsight's wonderful. They were sort of banking on the fact that Morgan Whittaker, when he came back, the Oxford game was huge for him, obviously, because after that he got sacked. But you sort of looked at starting 11. Barry Mumba was back, Whittaker was back, Conor Hazard was back, and some of their players that you sort of go, well, when they're back, we might be okay. They all came back, maybe rushed back, but they all came back for the Oxford game. And I'll be honest with you, they were really, really bad. And they looked like a team that were just shot of confidence. And you would be when you're losing that many games. Yeah. You would be.
How big's confidence and momentum in football?
Massive.
Particularly
We've seen that. We're a prime example of that.
Yeah. We had a conversation even before that game, and I said to you, if he doesn't win this, he's gone. We knew that he would be sacked if he didn't win the game. That was literally the most obvious thing that you could see coming. So yeah, I think you're right. And the one win in 14, there was nothing about Plymouth that was telling me that they were anything other than serious relegation candidates under Wayne Rooney, given the way it was going. You can't be that poor away from home on so many occasions. And look, don't get me wrong, Pompey have had 4 occasions where we've been awful away from home. I think Plymouth can probably count 4, 5, maybe even 6 as well. You can't get away with that very much longer. Yes, you're right, the home form. The home form actually is what kept Plymouth in the division last season, let's not forget. Like, they made Home Park a fortress. Very few teams went down there and won. Unfortunately, when you're that bad away from home, the home form is not the only thing that's going to keep you up, and you actually do need to pick up a little bit away from home. I am interested to see what happens next with Plymouth.
Who do they go with? I know Stephen Schumacher was linked as to reuniting those two. Maybe Ryan Lowe, again, a bit of a blast from the past, or the recent past of doing well there.
Got to get a firefighter in, someone who scraps it around, can get you out of it. Basically, do an even better version of what Gary Rowett has come in and started to do at Oxford United, which is remember and remind these players and make them remember that they are actually half decent championship operators, and that actually you've got to this level of football, you are a championship talent, you're not here by accident, you actually can perform. But yeah, there's only so much you can do.
I think as well, it sounds... You are right. The issue we've got is with that Plymouth squad is
it good enough to stay up?
I just don't think it... with Oxford, we're quite lucky that...
You reeled off some individuals there that I think are championship operators.
Yeah, they are. But I've named you 2 attackers, and they've just lost their best centre-back to Preston and Gibson already, and we're already in the 4th of January. So you've lost your one that you'd go, he's probably a championship, because that's what the Plymouth are in that position now, where you've got players that are like, well, if an offer comes in for a team that are definitely going to be in the championship next season, I'm obviously going to go now, because there's a high chance that we're not going to be.
Can we talk about timing-wise briefly as well? You know, when I said, is it 3 weeks too late? I would also say that with half an eye on this window. If you'd have got rid of Wayne Rooney at a low stocks moment, as they've had done for pretty much all season, they've had ample opportunity to pull that trigger and go, right, let's get someone in before we have a January window, let's not forget. And then you've got a new manager that's got can take his shopping trolley round the championship supermarket and go and add what he wants to. Actually, you're kind of doing that in a bit part way, whereby recruitment ownership are going to be doing the majority of that, and there's going to be no rubber seal of a manager to put that on. That, speaking from experience, before John Mousinho arrived a couple of years ago, he came in sort of midway through a January window, and someone like Riley Towler that we brought in that window, that was very much done from this is the football club and this is the future director of football recruitment. We're doing that thing, and that was a future-proof driven decision. It wasn't necessarily needing a managerial rubber stamp. So there is an extent to which you could argue that doesn't necessarily need to take place with a figurehead manager at the helm, and they can still go about their recruitment. But I think it's so important that this next appointment is right. And the incoming Plymouth manager has half a season to save the club.
He does. I think that the one final point, and I think it makes sense for all of these teams, is...
the championship, that is.
In the championship. The timing,
not going bust.
The timings is key, because, for example, Plymouth now have got to recruit players this January window based on the fact they're 24th.
Yep.
And they're in a really, really precarious position.
Particularly attractive,
that pool is difficult to fish in now. Oxford were 23rd when Des Buckingham got sacked. Suddenly, we're 18th, 3-1 on the bounce, and that pool has just got a lot bigger of players that go, well, there's a new manager there that's getting things really, he's cooking. He's doing a really, really good job.
Is he cooking after 3 games? Can you cook after 3 games?
He's cooking more than the teams below him. He's cooking more than Stoke, Luton, Pompey, Hull, Cardiff and Plymouth.
If he's cooking, yeah, but you can't start cooking after 3 games.
I think in a relegation battle, 9 points from 9 is based on what we're meant to be. I think that's important. I think that is important. I tell you, it's a far easier recruitment job when your team is winning games. I promise you.
Of course it is. I'd say he's cooking now after Millwall. The first 2 games...
Yeah, maybe not. The last 3, he's in a very, very good position. We've won the most games in the last 5 than anybody below us.
It's only a small meal he's cooking. He's not exactly feeding...
Based on the meal that was cooking before he came in.
Oh, yeah, that was burnt.
So, that was burning. Yeah. It was probably... Or maybe even raw. I don't know. It wasn't edible.
Yeah.
So I think we're in a position now where I'd much rather be Oxford going in transfer window.
Of course you would. Yeah, absolutely.
And also, again, you've got a manager that can convince you. The players are going to sit there and go, right, who's going to convince me to join?
We haven't got
anyone.
Yep.
Difficult, isn't it? Let's talk about Pompey then, because they're the last team in that almost bottom 6 that we haven't spoken about. I say underwhelming. I think we're actually at the stage now where in December it wasn't fantastic, but we've spoke about every team in the relegation battle. It's only right we're talking about Pompey.
Absolutely.
How are you feeling?
I'm going to find it tricky to talk down our December for the fact that we're now off the back of a 4-0 written all over it that I watched on Wednesday. And of course, it's not in the December reflection, as we say, but for the reason I mention it is because that's, as a result, means that it's 4 wins out of 5 at Fratton for Pompey. 2 of those, Bristol City, Coventry, coming in December, so there we can talk about it in the December reflections. Let's split it into Pompey at home and Pompey away, because that's the best way to tackle it. I think Bristol City was the best performance at home to date at that moment in time. Coventry was obviously the Callum Lang show, decent point, albeit denied a perfectly good goal, ruled out against Norwich, sandwiched between the two. So goals aren't an issue at home whatsoever. There is no issue with goals. Goals are flowing, confidence is flowing at home. We've got the atmosphere. Weather's not been great. That suits the way we're trying to go about things. We're on our terms. We're certainly looking like the accomplished side that knows what we're about at home. Pompey away, however, dearie me, it's 4-0, 2-1, 3-0.
It's Plymouth away for.
It is, and it's the middle game in there. Watford's a little bit of an outlier, refereeing decisions, etc. People saying you win some, you lose some with refereeing decisions. Within 2 weeks, we had the Watford one and the Norwich one. Won't go into it too much detail, but as soon as we get a favourable one, I'll be much more aligned on the we win some, we lose some. The 4-0 and the 3-0 Bristol City, Derby and Bristol City, sorry, they're inexcusably bad, Jack. They are the sort of performance characteristically that would suggest that we are bottom end, aside struggling to turn up away from home against some good teams that we've played. On both occasions, the games got away from us within 10 to 15 minutes and the opposition cruised the rest of the game, and that may well happen on Sunday. It's seemingly a zeitgeist to Pompey's championship campaign really so far this season. A heavy and labouring schedule tends to unstick us, and by the time that third game of the week arrives, we're on the floor. We saw it away at Pride Park. We saw it Sunday afternoon, just gone away at Bristol City. I wanted to talk about the cycle to you, and we discussed that this is what we're going to go through, and I'll do it very briefly. Pompey put in a response performance in game 1 that is usually at home. It looks emphatic, it's well deserved, and it's accomplished, and it instills some faith in supporters and provides a bit of a basis of confidence for the group. Game 2's slightly off the boil, typically encouraging and attached to a half-decent result. Watford's a bit of an outlier, as I said. I feel like a point was the very least that we were valued for that day. Game 3 is then a gutless and just completely characterless showing with weaknesses exposed in the most unadulterated of fashions. Luckily, our home form is good, and I fully expected the massive response we got against Swansea. But there's game 1 of that 3-game cycle, and the window has opened at a good time for us. There's currently very little beyond Mousinho starting 11, which looks capable of an accomplished championship survival. Yet the optimist in me is hopeful, and Pompey are not cut adrift at the bottom of the division. The players have proved countless times that they are a group capable of operating at this level. I spoke about a couple of accomplished operators in Plymouth side there. I think Pompey have a squad littered with it, albeit light on the water in terms of that competitive starting 11. 2024 has been an excellent year for this football club, and if you told any Pompey fan that we would be in this position 365 days ago, believe me, we would have all taken it.
I think so too. But let's move on to some positivity. I think we've done relegation, and there are positives in the relegation. There's some teams that have picked things up and don't look as in a precarious position, but there's also teams that are fighting at the top end of the table too. Question for you.
Yes.
Still happy with the 4-horse race prediction that we said last month?
Yeah, I think we are, aren't we? Who did we say? Did we say Leeds, Burnley, Sheffield United,
I think
Sunderland?
we did. I think although Middlesbrough's form has had a slight improvement, I did a video. You can check it out. I did a video talking about that title race. I excluded Middlesbrough from that. I do think 12 points is it is too many points. If I'm being brutally honest, I could be proved wrong. The video could look really silly if Middlesbrough were in the title race coming into the season. I just think with the way that Leeds, Burnley, Sheffield United and Sunderland have been more consistent than Middlesbrough, I can see that being a top 4. So you'd say you're happy with that. I've been impressed by all of them. Leeds United have impressed me. They're definitely a team we've got to talk about, because if we look at those December results, they've been on fire, really. They've looked really, really strong. They are every now and again suspect to a frustrating draw, but they don't lose many games whatsoever. In fact, they didn't lose a single game in December. They won 2-0, won 3-1 against Middlesbrough. That frustrating point against Preston, then beat us comfortably 4-0. Looked easy for them, to be honest with you. Beat Stoke 2-0 away from home, then beat Derby 1-0. Again, that was a really good example of Leeds United in a difficult circumstance, scoring late. We know Derby at home are a far better outfit than they are away. Leeds proved that themselves. They won comfortably at Ellen Road. Derby, Pride Park, they're going to make it really difficult. They stayed in that game. They were very, very, very good. And
Very
they found a
close as
way
well.
to win.
Yeah.
And we forgot that, we did, in League One, we forgot Pompey and their title win. It was about finding a way at times.
In those tight games, yeah.
In a tight game where the team is making it really, really difficult for you to break down. Derby are going to sit in that low block. They're going to be compact. Leeds United have got to find a way of beating that team, and they did just about. And then their frustrating point against Blackburn. They are always looking at a 1-1 draw away from home. That does tend to happen. But they're top of the table, 52 points, 3 points clear, same games as everybody else. That squad is very, very good. I did a full breakdown on their squad, and we looked through their depth. They've got a very tight-knit squad. They've got a very, very small selection of players, but they're all really, really good. And a few injuries have been frustrating. Firp has been out for a while, but he should be back now for the new year. You look at that squad; they've got a lot of now very available fit players over a tricky, difficult Christmas where injuries do creep into things. We said this with Leeds. I know they've got that tag of the team that does tend to bottle it, but I'm sorry, this Leeds United squad now looks like one where you go in 10 games' time. They've won 7 or 8 games. They're going to be in a really, really healthy position. I think they look like the team that Leeds United have wanted to be in the Championship for a while, because they've made it difficult for themselves over the last couple of years.
Shall I chat another impressive team in Burnley? They are
second place.
They're just very, very good, aren't they? And I know there's a little bit of a tinge of the conversation regarding Scott Parker and the way in which they're going about that, and the extent to which you agree or disagree with that adage is completely up to you. 2 back-to-back 0-0s of late, but that 2-0 win at Bramall Lane, Jack, I think is one of the defining results in games of the Championship this season. Let's not forget Sheffield United their home form particularly is monumental, and it's a real statement win, and they were the first team to win at Bramall Lane this season, and they are still the only team to do so. Still a team with an unbeaten home record this season. You're going to absolutely love this. They've let in 4 goals at home this season, Burnley. Pompey scored 1 of them.
Really?
Yeah. How weird is that?
2-1.
Yeah.
2 defeat, wasn't
Yeah. It's just so bizarre, isn't it? And it's just the way it works.
Don't you? So it'll be the only team to lose to Plymouth in that run.
Yeah.
And the only team to score against Burnley in their really strong defence.
We're in all these bizarre stats and whatever.
You're not in the bottom 3.
No, this is true. So we're okay. In Mousinho, we believe. By far the best away record in the league as well for Burnley. Big derby this lunchtime at the time of recording, just about to kick off. And that game is kind of the spur. I mean, even they're probably going to win it. Unless something.
Favourites.
They're the favourites. Blackburn on. Normally, when this derby comes around, Blackburn are the side fighting for. Have you gone?
No.
Blackburn on the side normally fighting for survival in the Championship, and Burnley usually, when these two teams meet, are the side that are right at the top end and looking to gain a promotion. That's just kind of normally the way it works. This time around, it's a little bit more interesting because Blackburn have got the playoff card that they're willing to play a little bit. Burnley obviously chasing, keeping hold of that top 2 spot. One of the first teams to play this weekend. I think it makes for really interesting reading. Something else I'll say about Burnley, and actually you can apply this to Leeds as well because they're over the threshold. 25 games played, 49 points at the time of recording, which is pretty much bang on 2 points a game, which is promotion form. And if that is carried on throughout the rest of the season, you could tarnish Sheffield United actually with the same positive brush, is that if they're averaging 2 points a game, there's going to be very little point in even having a conversation about them not getting promoted. Because if you are, we saw it with Derby and Pompey last season, if you're 2 points a game for long enough in any division, you will win the league or you will get automatically promoted. I know that if there are 3 teams averaging 2 points a game, then not all 3 of them can go up. But I think if you are as consistent as Leeds, Burnley, Sheffield United are, there's very little qualms about them not getting promoted this season. I'd be very, very surprised. Well, at least 2 of those 3 are going up automatically for me. I'd be surprised about any of them dropping off whatsoever.
It's a tight race at the top and at the bottom.
And Sunderland only 2 points below that as well, by the way. And
Sunderland again, they've stayed in it. They've had a good December too. I know they're not on our list, but if you look at the December, there's a frustrating result against Stoke in there that was a bit of an anomaly. But generally, they only lost 1 game in December, 1, 3 or 4 in that period. There's a lot of teams. 3. There's a lot of teams in there that are going to make it really difficult for that. In that 4-horse race, I think we are. people will say Leeds and Burnley, but similar to the relegation conversations, because they're first and second, a lot can change. January is huge. And before we make any more sort of big change, the next time we do one of these will be after the January transfer window. I think we're actually going to do a Who Won the Window again, but for January, so that'll be really cool.
Oh, have you already decided that, have you? Fantastic.
Yeah, well, you're going to come around anyway.
We haven't had a conversation about it, but we're just going to do it, apparently.
It did well last time. And that's, I think, when we can next have a really good look at where we currently find ourselves. Who is going to build the best squad to then propel them in the second half of the season. We'll wait and see. We had a really good conversation. Talk about relegation and promotion. And a few teams in between, some manager sackings. Really, really busy December. Busy time. But no, it's the 4th of January. This will come out at the start of next week. It's been hectic.
This is literally the only little time that we've got
to
record
Sunderland.
this.
We're playing this afternoon. Tomorrow, you're then now actually playing. This should be out Monday. It's going to be a ramming couple of days.
Busy.
But
thank you for having me.
It's been good. You enjoyed it?
Oh, always.
Good.
Your company, mate.